1 6
ये कंफ्यूजन हो रहा है आप तो ऑलरेडी कंफ्यूजन है वो वही है वो नीचे ना वो ऊपर में आप सब दिख रहा है 9 मत रहा ठीक है लॉन्ग प्रेस
जनरल Donner Saturday weekly lottery. First prize 1 crore on 5 digit. Which series? Series 8484. D. Delhi 13281. Second prize with our series 93206 50068 62048 94612 64901 89091 69803 95492 02872 84370. Third prize 0648 5685 6519 3356 0437 5287 6038 9311 1832 4364. Fourth prize 1123 8998 3978 3417 9801 1838 0863 3825 39657702.
Yes.
Fifth prize 04860262 1924 7066 8723 9349 5018 7144 2064 7098 7108 2807 6698 1297 1481 0289 3044 8279 3316 2259 9410 8927 8264 5865 0350 881 8991 8382 2201 6295 4175 8570 2741 0130 3851 0560 5770 0740 0615 5619 2245 3257 1557 0431 9048 7741 2040 8959 7436 3163 6574 5465 4933 9765 0488 1432 9574 7497 1774 9071 7235 3506 9620 6228 9720 7045 6328 0338 1571 1577 4190 0336 9918 0110 6117 8649 7117 3722 0458 9246 6751 4529 0625 0593 3731 4804 2469 559 2081 3481 4410 8400 5474 4896 7473 9110 9377 7858 6425 7303. Thank you.
Listen, there's a good insurance
A
policy.
good insurance policy. Let's ask AI. A policy in which premium payment is limited but provides income for lifetime.
LIC Jeevan Utsav.
Wow!
Lifetime celebration with LI.
So unfair, Shinjini. You said you would take me with you. Sorry, Kittu. Acha, Dara. I have something for you. To chhar bhai. You can't swim. What about this? My God. Rolling? Tight. Roll band দিলে সব তোকে পাক্কা।
এই আমি কি পর আমারটা দেন আমারটা কোথায়
রলিকের সাথে পুজোর আড্ডা জমে যাবে।
I don't smoke or drink or do anything naughty. My high comes from other human beings. We've had 2 or 3 so-called gurus who've also actually been con men. So you need to have the ability to differentiate between who's the real person and who's not. I do regret targeting Amir Khan. I met him later on in life. I apologized to him.
Why did you get cancelled? What happened?
It's our first phase of political podcasts. I do feel I was a bit of what we call a noob. The one thing I've learned about the political landscape of our country is that it's heavily scrutinized.
Would you like to interview Rahul Gandhi?
I would actually. I'm open to it. We've reached out to a lot of the Congress politicians who have rejected our invites because they have this impression that I'm on the BJP side and I'm going to destroy them.
How do you see this whole influencers, how young kids now are looking at that as a career?
The negatives are a lot of money and fame early on. The second negative is very short-lived careers. We've seen 19-year-olds take home 20 lakhs a month. That's just unfathomable money for that age. Yeah. They also lose motivation by the time they're 22, 23.
Who's the person you feel that Abhi, I have to get him or her on the show?
I'm genuinely running the show at this point to get you, Virat Kohli.
Namaste, Jai Hind. You're watching or listening to another edition of the ANI podcast with Smita Prakash. This episode is being filmed in Mumbai. My guest today is Ranveer Alabadia, popularly known as Beer Biceps, India's favourite YouTuber. Ranveer's podcasts are avidly watched by youth across all audio and video platforms. Ranveer covers a variety of topics such as fashion, finance, fitness, motivation and self-development. He has a very engaging style and simplifies complex issues. In fact, he gets trolled often for oversimplifying stuff. And then there are people who get grossed out over some of the topics that he discusses, like occult and aliens. Thank you, Ranveer, for being part of the podcast. I'm looking forward to this conversation. As viewers and listeners would know that I've appeared on your podcast, so I'm really looking forward to this conversation where I grill you.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to another episode with you because you were one of the nicest people to podcast with.
Oh, you're sweet. So, I have a number of questions to ask you, but before all that, the last time that I met you was at that the wedding of the year, wedding of the decade, wedding of the century. I don't know what to term it as, the Ambani wedding. I saw you there, and you even did a show on that. What was your impression about the wedding? Tell me.
Very memorable from a personal standpoint.
And from a Punjabi standpoint, no?
Yeah. You always look forward to events like that.
Huh.
Also, in terms of how intense YouTube and our schedules with shoots get, we pretty much shoot every day. So my social life is very, very minimal other than these kind of interactions. So this was that once in the year moment where I got that kind of relief. And this is literally the best possible scenario for a social event. In terms of the people you're meeting, in terms of just the whole experience of it. Very, very memorable. The scale was something that I'll never be able to get out of my head. I'm sure you feel the same.
It felt like, I was there at the reception only. I wasn't there at the other events where, there weren't too many Bollywood celebs the day I attended the reception. And it was like the G20 event, if you know what I mean, like that showcasing of Kashi and things. It was more like an India event.
Yeah. Also, just want to take this opportunity to say that we're not paid to do this.
Yes, zero.
I think I made that podcast very naturally because the way life works as a content creator is that you have a certain life you're living in terms of your human experience. You have moments where you have emotional spikes. And usually for me, it's been 9 years of content. If I have an emotional spike, my immediate response to that emotional spike is turn this into content. So I was feeling so overwhelmed. I thought, wow, I have to create this piece for the internet. Now I don't know what kind of PR exercises went on, but I definitely wasn't part of those.
Yeah, true.
So
But yes, 9 years of creating content, as you say. I mean, it's like being a journalist. You were like a journalist there. Because when you're looking at something, you're not just looking कि मैं शादी attend कर रहा हूँ या मैं event attend कर रहा हूँ. You are looking more कि my God, this is masala for content. You know what I mean? It's like a journalist. For everything that we go, it's like a story. How are you different from a journalist mentally? What do you think?
I think I'm slightly more immature. Like, let's start there. No, I'm kidding. I think, honestly, the way content creation works is that there's an aspect of it which is not sustainable. I don't think it is the kind of career where you should tie yourself down to that occupation for your whole life. It can get pretty gruesome. It can burn you out a bit. I've made peace with it in terms of I've kept like a deadline for myself, which is roughly another 9-10 years. I feel I'm at half time right now. I'm only going to do this for like another 9-10 years, and I really enjoy it. That's the other aspect of it. So there's really high highs and really low lows. Also, I think in terms of content creation, the way it's different from journalism is that the kind of content a journalist has to go about is very current affairs related, is very geopolitically related, etc., etc. Like, it's about the news. For us, I personally feel every content creator has their own domains that they tackle. My domain is emotions rather than like just current affairs. So even if we're doing a political podcast, if we're doing like a podcast related to geopolitics, I'll always try to tie it with human psychology and human emotion. So this sauce can spread itself to any domain. I think that's the fundamental difference for me. But in saying that, someone like Nitish Rajput, Dhruv Rathi, Think School, all these guys, they're more inclined to the current affairs side of things. So every content creator has their own style of going about it. I do believe it's a much more casual job than journalism. There is a responsibility attached, but it's far lesser than what the responsibility related to journalism is about. Like,
quite fascinating when you say that I give myself itna time to do this. Like, when I was your age and I was getting into journalism, video journalism, because it was just a start of video journalism at that stage. It was called video because wo VCR pe hota tha, but it was the start of that. And my generation, I think, kind of drifted into it. Wasn't working in this watertight compartments of when I reach 30, I will do this. When I reach 40, this is where my career is going. So I find it fascinating that you're already decided कि मैं इतने देर तक इतना करूँगा. That one point I want to ask you about. And the second, you said the highs are high and the lows are low. What was the low point or the lowest point that you felt, that what am I doing? Why am I doing this?
Definitely the start. I think that was one very big low point, because 9 years ago there was no concept of content creation in the world. So to go about the journey alone, that was a low. The other forms of lows are not the public trolling, online hate one gets. That's what one would assume from the outside looking in. It does affect content creators, but again, every content creator is very different from every content creator is different. So for me personally, the lows are always synonymous with the lows that we face in terms of engagement, primarily because I'm also paying a lot of salaries. And we end up getting some kind of a slight kind of financial pressure if the views and engagement goes low. The way I've always looked at content creation is as a business first. So for me, my low moments are always that one moment or maybe 2 moments in a year where we see a little bit of a drop in engagement. Often it's not in our hands. Sometimes just, for example, January, every year, the engagement drops. Sometimes July, every year the engagement drops. This is something we've seen over the last 9 years. And I know this by this point, but every time we see a slightly less amount of engagement, it does affect you on a psychological level, even now. And that's something I'm grappling with even 9 years in, which is why I think the solution I've built out for myself is what I spoke about prior to this. In terms of whenever you feel an emotional spike, just turn it into content, focus on the process, do it for yourself first and foremost, because there's a very big luck factor in this job as well. For example, just with podcasting, you keep getting better with every podcast. You're working hard, you're giving 100%. But at the end of the day, you're only going to get a Dr. Jaishankar once on your show. You're only going to get a John Abraham once on your show. You're only going to get a Kohli once on your show. So that's not in my hands. We've built out an infrastructure, we've built out a machinery, but there's a very, very big luck factor at play. So you are governed a lot by factors that are not in your control. That is the lack of ease for me in this occupation. I feel it's quite unstable, it's quite volatile. All one can do is build infrastructure and be ready for the good moments.
You have conversations which may not get you the numbers, but they're amazing conversations when you're doing it. Like, at least that's my experience, that sometimes I would do a conversation I'm fascinated with. I'm really happy with the conversation, but it may not get me the engagement. It may not get me the numbers. So that's a low, because your team will say ki isme to number nahi aaye, but you've done a good conversation. So how do you balance it? Do you feel good, bad? How do you feel about it?
Honestly, ma'am, like I know that what you're saying makes sense, and that's the much nicer, more mature way of looking at things. It's just that I've not reached that stage of maturity to some degree where I do tend to get affected by, a lack of performance, a lack of results. Because primarily for me, over the last 9 years, the turning point was where we became extremely result oriented. So by year 6-ish, I sat down with my core team and we decided that for us, it's going to be all about engagement and growth after this point. And that was the big turning point for me as a content creator. I just think that that's a working hazard for me. That's how my occupation works. You have to kind of target constant growth for your YouTube channel, constant growth for your podcast. And again, that can be a bit of a double-edged sword, because it's great, it will happen if you align yourself towards it. But in the phases where it doesn't happen, in the phases where things don't work out because of luck or destiny, etc., it will affect you.
You really believe in luck, destiny and all playing a very important role?
I definitely do, because of the people I've met on the show, primarily. I think we've done about 800 episodes. So it's been a very intense learning journey. And I'm not very focused on career advice or on, subject matter. Much more focused on human emotions and human stories through my work. So this has been one of my learnings, that at least for 90% of my guests, destiny and luck has played a role in their journeys. And if you take a step back from your own journey, this is what's worked for me. I've always noticed that the turning points always had a bit of a luck factor, a bit of a destiny factor.
Yeah, true. Sometimes you feel itni mehnat ki par wo nahi chala. And some of your guests say that too in their interviews, that we worked so hard on this film and it didn't work, and some were at a breeze, but it clicked. So yeah, luck plays. And I mean, even for you to start, this wasn't what you imagined. I guess you'd be doing podcasting. Your education was taking you on a different line. Your parents being doctors, they would have expected a different line in their careers, in their career plan for you.
Can you imagine me being a doctor?
No, I can actually, because you're so experimentative that you would have been fabulous even as a doctor, I feel.
Yeah, I love biology, love the doctors we have on the show, especially when we're talking about neuroscience or something like that. But I had an innate fear of blood while growing up, and that was the primary factor because of which I didn't take up medicine. And that was a little bit of an issue at home, but my parents were also kind of relaxed. I think both my parents are very creative people, and their parents were doctors and engineers themselves. So they didn't get to pursue their creative passion. So when I reached that age 22 mark after engineering college, they weren't okay with me kind of taking an alternative path. Again, I've said this a lot, but my dad had sat me down and told me that take a month after engineering college, I'll provide for you. And after that, you're going to have to provide for yourself. We're not going to pay for your food. We're not going to...
Wow.
Yeah, like all my expenses, the pocket money, it stopped. Fortunately for me, I'd earned a little bit of money from my internships, and I'd started earning money through fitness training. So during engineering college, I became a certified fitness professional. And right after engineering college, I did an odd job. Like I worked in an engineering factory, figured out stuff, figured out how business works. And then immediately after that conversation with my father, I figured out how to begin a career as a fitness trainer. and I earned a lot of money back then for a 22-year-old, but invested all of it in YouTube. So that's how the YouTube journey began, and in retrospect, thank you, Dad. Like,
Yeah, I guess it takes a while to figure out when your parents throw you into the swimming pool, ki तैरना सीखो, or tell you to get into their career. I mean, most parents would want to protect the kids, you know, like if they've gone through struggles, to see that it becomes easier for the children. But then there are some parents who feel that that's not the right way. Kids need that getting into the swimming pool without knowing how to swim. Ki तैरना वैसे सीखो. There are various ways of parenting. I agree with what your parents did. I mean, I would do the same with my kids, or I kind of liked it with my what my parents did. Similar kind of training, that it's your hard work. And I didn't take money either from my parents ever since college, like do it on your own kind of a thing, you know. But yeah, when you were talking about your earlier fitness training, when you started with that, even though you're the most favorite podcaster in India, tell me about beer biceps. Why beer biceps? I mean, people who don't know, my viewers and listeners who may not know why you started with beer biceps as the name.
Yeah, the original thought behind that was that I couldn't speak Hindi well back then. Hindi as a language is something that is very easy to speak conversationally, but when you're speaking to camera, when you're making up a script on the go, it's not the easiest process.
Correct.
So for me, my thinking language was English. For many of us in Mumbai, it is that way. You can have a conversation in Hindi, but you can't speak to camera. So I thought, okay, I'm doing English, might as well target an international audience. No one's going to follow someone called Ranveer Alabadia who's sitting at 200 subscribers on YouTube, but someone might be intrigued by the name Beer Biceps. So that back then, in terms of fitness YouTube channels, everyone was promoting the idea of being obsessed with fitness and making it your whole life.
But why beer?
I wanted to promote the idea of balance within fitness. So have fun, party, but also work on your fitness. And at that point in my life, this is before I became a teetotaler. I became a teetotaler at 25, but pre-age 25, I had a pretty wild engineering college life. And
So beer was your go-to?
Back then, yes.
Right? Like, I guess engineering students all have one weakness, what do you say, or one penchant, I don't know what you want to call it, where it's a go-to thing that they would go.
I think engineering college is divided into two poles, the front benchers and the back benchers.
Okay.
So the front benchers will do everything right and study and do all the right things even from career perspective. Back benchers are always the ones who end up leaving college and getting into films, getting into YouTube, getting into startups.
How did fitness happen?
I grew up pretty overweight. At age 16, I was diagnosed with a gallstone, and that